Good afternoon, everyone. Special thanks to all my Adapt 2030 patrons. This video is possible because of your support. Wanted to talk about Wheeler's drought clock. We are repeating cycles. And when I talk about this, it is climate cycles, waves, smaller durations of time overlapping into longer durations. As you're seeing the floods pervade our planet, it is a cycle. This is how quickly we're going to enter the grand solar minimum compared to what we did in the Maunder minimum. We can track grand solar minimums through time and intensity. We know the forecast going out, how quickly it's going to cool, but also the wider the waves are, the wider those lines are, the more intense our weather becomes. And you can see the 2019 and 20 split is this amplification right here. At the very minimum, our weather is going to become 4 times more intense by 2021 than you're seeing today. We can map out where these changes are occurring, where they're going to cool again, where it's going to become more wet. But the problem is every time it cools and becomes wet, societies across the planet collapse. Civilizations collapse. And join me on BitChute, where I'm starting to back up the Adapt 2030 channel. And I do thank all my Patreon subscribers. If you want to support and make videos like this possible, PayPal or Patreon, Adapt 2030. Wanted to start you off with Wheeler's drought clock here. Now what this is, a glimpse into time where repeating droughts come on cycles. Everything in our universe revolves around cycles. There's no such thing as linear time. We can always come back to a start point again, and we saw this through ancient history. They had mapped out all these cycles for us going back even millions of years. This particular Wheeler's drought clock maps out from approximately 200 AD until now, which is about 1900 years into the past. And we can see some of these grand droughts are on longer 510-year cycles, while others come in on the 100-year cycle, and you start to get overlapping cycles of 170, 510, 100 within each other. But then also in the Arctic, we have cycles of 9 years, and that would be the bottom on these climatic cycles, these really short duration. The pulse water heading into the Arctic, that's going to continue to cool and create more sea ice because the Atlantic water temperatures are cooler, so these 9-year water pulses pushing under the Arctic ice, it's not going to melt from beneath as quickly. And then we have more middle duration cycles, might be 60, and then in the center there 100 years, and at the very top we might get something like this grand solar minimum that we're entering, 400-year duration, 800-year duration. Now see, the IPCC has trained you to believe that the climate has been so stable all the time through all the past that suddenly we just changed it today and just started changing right now because of us. Well, really, when you look through the past, go back through the last 2,000 years across the continents, and you can see how the temperature has varied. From heat, it's even been warmer in Antarctica than it is today. Go back 400 AD, 800 AD, and you'll start to see these temperature variances. And then we got the cooling, we got the warming. And it's just natural variability. It's happened all the time through history, and our climate's continuously changing. And then they'll come out, once you point that fact out and they know they're in a corner, they'll say, well, you're making it happen faster than it's ever happened before. But again, that's not true, especially look at the Younger Dryas and plunges in and out of extreme temperature swings. You'll find that through the ice core records everywhere you look. Now, this particular chart here shows us the top is the Maunder minimum. The bottom is the current Eddy minimum that we are entering. Now you can see the duration of entry and how deep and how quickly the exit out of these, meaning how quickly the weather is going to change as we get into the depths of the cooling. And you can see in the Maunder minimum, they had 40, almost 50 years as it sort of slid into this grand solar minimum, where for us, we're just plummeting off a cliff. And the same type of research where they're measuring magnetic field in the sun shows you the duration and intensity of these. I put the black line in there so you could really see where the depths in the bottom were, how quickly it'll come out. And they can even map into the future based on projections with magnetic fields in the sun, what the next grand solar minimums will be in intensity, how much activity on the sun there will be, and then how cold or how hot these cycles will bring. We are expected to plunge into the deepest cooling that you can see on this chart here from 1200 AD all the way to 3200 AD. So in the 2,000 years of projections that they have here, our current time is going to be the coldest in 2,000 years, especially when we get around 2024 and 2025. There's so much research that's been done on this, and it really startling how it's not making any of the debates in the climate change circles, because this is a main driver of why our climate's changing. Sunspot cycles, our magnetosphere weakening, which allows jet streams to move in different places like we're seeing right now. This is a great paper here. Grand minimum of the total solar irradiance leads to little ice age. And Dr. Butamatov from the Pulkovo Observatory is just a single resource. Those last charts I showed you were Popov, Shepard, Zarkov, and Zarkova. And it just shows you our entry into this new grand solar minimum. And that chart's a little squeezed there, so I'll bring it out for you here. We're in solar cycle 24 at the very bottom, and we're coming into solar cycle 25. And projections are for solar cycle 25, no more than 50 sunspots total. And as we come into solar cycle 26, which will run through 2030 to 2035-ish, we may have no sunspots at all, and we will absolutely repeat something in the Maunder minimum. This is the reference report here, Shepard, Zarkov, Zarkova, and Popov. The wider the wave is on this, how wide those lines spread, the more intense our weather becomes. I dropped in the arrows and the dots there so you could start to get a gauge of how much amplification there will be from year to year. Now at the very left where the arrows start in the yellow color, that's 2015-16. And as we get into the green shaded area, that's right now. That's literally July of 2018 moving forward. To get you a better indication of what's going to happen, the amount of weather change that you're seeing right now is nothing in comparison to what's coming. I mean, really, right now, I consider it completely stable weather. Although it's at the extremes for the floods, the heat, the wind, cyclonic events, whether it be tornadoes, waterspouts, or hurricanes, typhoons. We also have the electrification of our atmosphere, different layers in our atmosphere starting to electrify that haven't been seen before. This is a light version of what's about to happen to us over the next 2 years. So I really put it out here, two ways for you to look at it. Left side in the red is 2016 to 17. That's the full amount of change for that year in the climate that we saw a lot of amplification. And then we jump into the yellow bar, 2018 to 19. So you can see even further from 2019, it's going to increase again. It's going to double what we're already seeing. So next year's weather is going to be at least double the amplified incredible effects of cold, heat, and all the other extreme storms that you're seeing. Every storm now is a once in a 200-year flood. Well, it's going to increase to every storm is going to be once in a 400-year flood coming up by 2021. So you can see how the bars are starting to widen. That's how much change is coming as well. But what's startling is the 2016 to 17 compared to 2020-21 levels, that's like 6 to 7 times more intense. Now, when I'm talking about floods, this video's pretty much devoted to floods because this is Australia right here. You can start to see when they get to the extremes where you saw these flood and snow records being broken this last year and the year before in Australia. Once they have these extreme floods, they just dive off on the temperature and go into drought, which you're starting to see down in southern Australia. Expect no wheat or very little wheat to come from Australia this year. We're in crisis levels of wheat production at the moment, and they're going to be halting wheat exports for so many countries, so expect massive, massive changes in the price of wheat. Now, through these grand solar minimums, we actually know where the temperatures are going to drop and where it's going to become more wet based on past cycles. Now, you notice also in Alaska, where they always keep trying to point as the poster child for global warming, it's so hot in Alaska. Well, during these grand solar minimums, Alaska actually becomes warmer. And so does the southern part of Greenland in that ocean, although it's cooling this time, which is the opposite of what happened in at least the last 400 years of cycle. You notice North Africa, where it's really cold in Morocco, we're starting to see the same thing, record snows and cold there. And then all across Europe and Eurasia. Now, why would I even spend my waking hours studying this or bringing it to you through my hundreds and hundreds of videos? It's because every time these changes come, societies collapse, civilizations collapse, and we're set back. Every single time. If we didn't this time, it would be completely the first time ever that it hasn't set us back as a society and as a global civilization. Dark ages are pretty much what accompany these: economic collapse, population migration. These are the normal fingerprints of these grand solar minimums. And it's all tied to the extreme weather that comes. Unreliable growing seasons, unreliable harvest seasons. This has an deterrent effect on rising food prices and affects the economy as people spend in different places. Once you can't work anymore, your power grid goes down, you're going to want to migrate to another place. Simple, just go back through history, find out where the grand solar minimums were everywhere it's blue, and hit a history book and see what happened during these times. You will be shocked, and you probably won't sleep for the next 3 nights thinking about it. I created my own charts here just based on Chinese society. Everywhere you see a bar was a grand solar minimum or a cooling event and a collapse of a dynasty. The emperor lost the mandate from heaven due to not being able to produce enough food for the citizens. Or it was a massive drought. They started infighting, the fiefdoms inside there, the kingdoms, if you will. And it's like regular clockwork. When the temperature drops, the jet streams shift and take moisture into different places. Now, I want to come back to the forecast going out with the grand solar minimum here. As you can see, our solar activity is going to continue to diminish. And as it does, it just means the magnetic field on the sun is going to have less strength. And we're connected to that. The Earth's connected to it magnetically, electromagnetically. And as the sun's magnetic field diminishes, you're going to see more amplified changes on our planet. Our magnetosphere is going to weaken. The solar wind's going to stop or be greatly reduced compared to even what it is right now. And our jet streams are going to absolutely flow wherever they want to flow. They're not going to be locked in anywhere. So my prediction is this year or next, we're going to see snowstorms like this that are going to bury in entire cities in our modern world. So the Wheeler drought clock, it's all about the cycles. The floods are also included in the droughts. We have the flip. So anywhere you see a high point where there's not a drought, that's a flood. So you can start to see, where are we along this timeline? Are we even indeed in this 2,000-year timeline, or are we outside that into something in the 3,600-year timeline? Because whatever's happening is happening faster than the forecasts on the 400-year cycle. We're eclipsing. We're going into something more gargantuan, more great, more powerful cooling and weather amplification than I do believe on the 400-year level. I believe it's now something in the 3,600-year level, and it's absolutely going to sweep through all of our civilization on this planet. And this is why I do my video. I want you to be prepared. I want you to understand the changes so when it happens, you're not coming at it from fear. You can understand why, and you can explain to others why. Then you can prepare. Then you can get ready to thrive during these times because you're prepared. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. I'm also posting this type of content on Steam in a blog post so you can see all the charts. You can read the text along with it. And I have the podcast Mini Ice Age Conversations tri-weekly that I talk about these same issues, but for half hour at a time. And I do bring on guests so we can analyze deeper issues. And again, you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. And I'll see you in the next video.